To yell into the mic. So, okay. All right. So, welcome to Cup of Joe. It's great to see everyone. I just want to say my name is Amy, and we have the Dairy Queen Grill and Chill in Savannah. And on the side, I do Zumba and at Studio 29 Dance. And I also want to say that the Chiefs signs are up there as you came in. If you saw them, you can take one or two or three. So on your way out, be sure to grab them, put them in your yard or at your business. We want to thank the library, as always, for letting us use this space. And I think the library is closed next week, but we are still here. So we will still have Cup of Joe next week. Okay, so be sure to show up for that. And one more thing, we want to thank our coffee sponsor, Golden Glaze. They provided all these donuts and the coffee, so extra bonus. And that will be going on all through this month. So come in hungry, get your coffee and your donut, all right? Okay, you guys are just so lively today. Okay, so anyway, we have authors here today, which is very exciting. And we're going to start out, who am I starting with? Tom Brand. And we want to welcome you, Tom. Come on up.
I got a wild bunch back there in the back row, and Tony has even threatened to start the wave. So if you see him starting to stand up and throw the arms, just follow his lead and go along. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here this morning. I'm going to get right to the slideshow, and you guys, several of you have been through this before, and so you know there's kind of a routine to things, and so we always start off with about the company. So who's the company? Well, there's this guy. And I'll guarantee that I'm not trying to pick anything out of the seat of my pants in that photo there, just the way that it edited. I'm the author of stories, and some people have told me I've been a storyteller all my life. I had a former coworker that said, "Don't ask Tom what time it is; he'll tell you how to build a clock." So I guess that's my claim. This is probably the most important part of the operation that gets overlooked too many times. This is my wife, Beth. And as I point out, she's my chief encourager. She's my common sense advisor, because there's been times I've written things she said, "Do you really want to do that?" She's a consistent source of inspiration for me. There's some things that she does that I didn't write down, including in the car. She'll say, "You ought to write a story about that." And with that, I'll hand her my phone, and she knows where the notes are, and she'll make the notes for me. And she's my best friend. We've been married coming up. It's this month. We've been married. I always got to stop and do the math because I got it wrong for a few years, and so did she. 34 years. Sal Lou, as they used to say on Hee Haw. So how did Richardson and Company Press get started? Well, it started with a memory, and it was a memory of a pig. It goes back to early 2024. It was a horribly cold winter day, and for some reason, after I got done clearing the driveway with snow, I got to thinking about working outside, growing up on a farm 50 miles north of here at Hopkins, Missouri, and bedding sheds with my two brothers and my dad on the farm. Bedding sheds involves straw bales, wheat straw bales, breaking it up, making things nice and fresh. For pigs, the step before that involves something that resembles straw, has a very strong ammonia-like odor, and it's not always the most pleasant experience, and it's a lot of physical labor. But when you get done, and you got fresh straw, and you got this little building that it would have been smaller than this room, probably about the same length with an old LB White heater in the one end, and you got that warmth coming through, and you got this fresh straw smell that's in the air. And I remember my dad reaching over, and he shut off the light switch, and for some reason, he paused before we left that morning. It was a Sunday morning. We always get up early Sunday morning, so we'd go to the State Line Cafe to have a little bit of breakfast before we headed to church. And that morning, the sows had laid down, and I don't know if any of you have ever been around a bunch of sows that are nursing pigs, but the first thing you'll hear is an old sow, and she'll go, "Ugh." And then about 3 pins down, another old sow goes, "Ugh, ugh." And it's that sound of relaxing. It's the same sound that your dad probably made on Sunday afternoons when he took a nap right before he started snoring. But for sows, it's just that relaxed. And then you'll hear a little pig and this rustling around. It was on a horribly cold winter day. And I thought, I'm going to write about that. So I did a Facebook post about bedding sheds with my dad and my two older brothers. The editor at the Nottoway News Leader in Maryville saw that post on Facebook, and she reached out and she said, could I run that as a guest piece in the newspaper? I said, well, sure. She said, when I copy and paste out of Facebook, lots of times it loses the formatting. So if you would send that to me in a Word document, that'd make it a whole lot easier, and that way it doesn't get goofed up. So I sent it to her. She responds back, and at this point in time, she's cast the line into the water. And she said, this was wonderful. Thank you for sharing. If you'd be interested in writing some more, I'd take your contributions at any time. Now I've been on the hook. And I answered back and I said, how often could I send you a piece? Because I didn't want to overextend my welcome. She said, I just lost a columnist. I'd take something, 500 words every week. And with that, the relationship was formed. I wrote because I wanted to, not because I had to. No money was exchanged. It was just a nice release for me. About the first 4 or 5 weeks was easy. You can come up with stories. And then after that, you're handing your wife your phone as you're driving down the road, telling her to take a few notes. And so weekly then, I found myself writing columns for the Nottoway News Leader. Where'd the name come from for the company? Well, anytime you put a company together, you have to go back into your head. And so this is my dad, Richard. I am Richard's son. Thus, Richard's Son and Company. Sounds much bigger than it is, but it's a tribute to my dad. And then the logo for the company, if anybody has ever been north between Maryville and Hopkins, Missouri, up on the top of the hill, above the 102 River, standing probably 60, 70 feet above what would be standard elevation, are these two silos that sit on the side of the hill. And then the silo on the right is about 100 feet tall. And we've got a star on top that we light from Thanksgiving to Christmas, or really to New Year's every year. So that's the logo. It's a nod to the home place. So the first book was born, called Welts on Your Butt, A Calf Could Suck. It goes back to something my dad said when I was a little kid and I didn't have a full grasp of the English language. It was keep those hogs off of that panel, or we're going to have trouble. And as a little kid, I'm shoeing hogs and I'm stomping and that kind of thing. I'm going to guess I was 4 or 5 years old, and it was not working. And of course, that little of a kid, I lost interest. And pretty soon, pigs were on the hog panels, and pigs do what they do on hog panels, and it's not just root around them. They make a mess as well. And so now Dad's having to handle hog panels that have a mess on them. And he said, now, and he's concerned that pigs are going to possibly get caught up and break a leg. He says, now listen, keep those hogs off those panels, or I'm going to put welts on your butt a calf could suck. I did not know what a welt was, in all seriousness. But I knew if I had something on my butt that was large enough a calf could suck it, I wanted nothing to do with this. And the visual became very clear in my head of avoiding welts on my butt a calf could suck. By the way, butt is a 4-letter word in my mother's vocabulary. This is a word that my mother does not approve of. The title of the book was not known to Mom until 250 copies were published, and she found out at the alumni banquet in front of all of her friends when she was celebrating her 60th class reunion. To say that she turned shades of red would be an understatement. But that was the first book, essentially made up of a collection of columns that had appeared in the paper, expanded to help fit the space, and then in the process, I found myself writing about a third new stories to help fill the book. About 160 pages when it was all said and done. I was tickled with it. I had a lot of fun with it. And I'll tell you a little bit about how the sales have gone on it. Who's my audience? I look at Facebook demographics to kind of figure out who the audience is. Plus, I know who gives me the feedback. It's mostly 35 years of age and older, but where the key is when you get about 55, 60 plus, it's a pretty even split of men and women. Women seem to tend to gravitate towards these stories a little bit more. They're mostly memories. I tell people that I'm writing to help remember. Some of them are personal about me, but most of the stories that I write seem to be one that I can say, this is an experience that I had, and I hope it's something you can relate to. Readers connect because I think overall it doesn't matter where you're from. People like small town living. I think there's an appreciation of agriculture and farmers, And then Midwestern Values. I was telling somebody earlier, I ran this book title into a group of authors supporting authors, and I had all sorts of things that were said about the book title that I never imagined, including child abuse and bestiality. And so much for authors supporting authors. Midwestern Values, this is the kind of thing that clicks with people. So target market simply is people that like to reflect. The best compliment I've ever had is when someone says, "You made me remember." So if you're a person who likes to read something and reflect back a little bit, I think that's for you. Families, personally, I've had a lot of fun reading these to grandkids. 7, 5, 3, and then still in arms. The 7 and the 5-year-old, and part of it's because it's Papa, but I found that families like this. My second oldest daughter works at Noise Home, and she reads stories to the kids at Noise Home, and it resonates with them, even kids at a younger age. And I think regional connections, because when you hear somebody write a story about Northwest Missouri, you hear somebody write a story about Mizzou, something that they've been there, they know that place, then it makes a connection to them. And overall, it's somebody that says, I wanted to feel like home. In fact, lots of times when I sign a book, I'll say, I hope this feels like home, because that's truly my goal there. So I did independent publishing with this. I actually did several different ways of distribution. I found a printer in St. Louis that has been extremely good to work with. It's in a little strip mall. You'd never know they were there. Lipman Printing was the name of them. I found them through an extensive search. I reached out to about 12 different printers altogether, and I saw price tags that went from more dollars per book than I was going to charge to what I considered to be reasonable. And so I ordered 250 copies of Welts Under But a Calf Could Suck. In 3 weeks, Marcy Bennett put them at the Convention Visitors Bureau, and I pushed hard on social media. In 3 weeks, I was down to less than 50 copies, and I had a book signing at the Story Collective. So I kind of freaked out a little bit, and my online sales were good, and so I turned around and I ordered another 250 copies, because I was like, okay. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this later, but those 250 copies are gone. Then I got this inspiration from one of my grandkids about Johnny Fry and the Pony Express. And I'm looking at the clock. I won't go into details, but essentially it's a story that was inspired by my grandsons about who's that guy on the horse. And I felt like as I was telling the story, it became, the way it started, it's a poem. It's a kid's book, 30 some pages long. As I was putting the story together in my head, Grandpa's telling the grandson about Johnny Fry. And as I got about halfway through, I was like, any kid that's reading this is going to say, this is boring, because you expect Grandpa to be the authority. I flipped the script. The grandson is schooling Grandpa. I'll let the cat out of the bag. So I never heard of Johnny Fry, I heard my grandpa say. You never heard of Johnny Fry? And with that, the little boy begins to tell about the adventures of Johnny Fry. Ordered 250 of those. Done a poor job of marketing on that. Cindy Daffrin, Pony Express, again, Marcy at CVB has been good about carrying them. I did not get into promotional mode with that book because of two things. One, I had a resurgence with Welts that all of a sudden I was like, I can't be marketing a second book because I got to keep the focus on Welts, because all of a sudden it's moving again. It came to life out of nowhere. So I've done a poor job of marketing that, and that's okay. I mean, to market it the way it needs to be marketed, I really need to head west and stop in Marysville, Kansas, and I need to follow the Pony Express route in order to sell that. As much as anything, that's a book for my grandkids. It's a book that I've been able to give to some libraries. It's been a book I've been able to give to some schools, and I think literacy is important. So that's a pet project of mine, and I'm glad to do it. Then I came up with You Have to Leave If You Want to Come Back. Double meanings that are in the title of that book. This is one. I loved Welts, but I have fallen in love with You Have to Leave. And it's hard to describe other than the feedback that I've got has been from people that was completely unexpected, and the words that they've used have brought me to tears sometimes. For some reason, that book is connecting with people in a different way. And it's stories that are written in the same vein, but people have connected with that book because you can order 500 books a whole lot cheaper than you can 250. I spent what I'd made on the 500 that I sold in order to pay for the 500 that I purchased. So you write books so you can finance your second book. You're not going to make much money off of books. Independent bookstores have been great. Let me tell you a little bit how they work. They purchase your book for 60% of the price. So if you say I got a $15 book, they're going to pay you 60%. And then they're going to hopefully make that 40%. The risk that they take on is if they don't sell it for $15, they may have to back it down to $12.95, and all of a sudden they're making $1.25 off that book. So I love working with independent bookstores. Story Collective, if you don't know Ashley, if you've not been in that store, leave here and go downtown immediately. She has a great little shop, and if she doesn't have it in stock, she'll get it for you. Don't go to the big A in the sky. Go to Ashley. If you're in Bedford, Iowa, Head Juice has a nice little book and toy store. Skylark Bookshop in Columbia, Missouri has picked up the book. The Novel Neighbor in St. Louis and Bloomin' Bindings in Boonville, Missouri has picked up the book, and I've got 6 others that I'm working on. That's an afternoon project, in fact, today. And then, as I mentioned, CVB has been great. Nottoway News Leader helped move a lot of the Welts books. They've since closed their operation, and then Pony Express has been another good partner. Amazon, though, is necessary. If you're going to be an author, you got to work with Amazon, because here's what happens. Click, check out. 2 days later, you get your book. It is the best of all worlds. They've got a formula. If you sell enough books, you can make yourself a quote-unquote best author. If anyone wants to know, New York Times best-selling author is 10,000. That's why when you see a book come out and they say New York Times bestseller, because they've sold 10,000 books before it ever went to the printer. So they can already make that claim because every airport bookshop has already bought that book. Amazon, I'm always hesitant to say this in public, but it's true. You sell 100 copies in 48 hours, you're an Amazon bestseller. If you got the right category, then you can get ranked. I was #1 in rural humor and lifestyles. I was in the top 15 with humorous parenting advice. I don't know how they assigned me that, but they did. And then I was top 20 in rural travel, of all things. But that was the kind of demo that I needed. All of a sudden, my book's showing up when someone buys Lake Wobegon Days. You might like Tom Brand's book. So you play the game with Amazon. It's free. You pop your book on there. It's simple as your email, and away you go. But, and I should have made it a big old but. Printing cost. You say, here's my book. Miles has done this. Here's my book. Okay, how many pages is it? What kind of paper do you want to use? Is it going to be full color? Is it going to be black and white interior with cover on the outside? Do you want to use our ISBN number? Do you have your own ISBN number? Things have got to fit the right format. The number of pages it is, the size of the book, that's what the cost is going to be. So you say, okay, well, that's affordable enough because it's print on demand, and again, they're taking care of the printing. Then their royalty rate kicks in. Remember, a local bookshop will pay you they'll pay you 60% of the price. Amazon says we're keeping 60% of the price. So you do the math on that. You got a $15 book. You put it on Amazon. They take 60% right off the top. That's $9. So, okay, I'm going to get $9 out of that 50. That's great. The cost of the book. It costs $5 to print the book. I'll tell you what, that kid's book doesn't cost $5. It's closer to 10. Do the math on that. I made it a $15 book with the $5 printing. That kid's book, in fact, it's over 10. So you got $4 that goes to you. And the book that I sell today, I won't get paid for until the 1st of October. The book that I sell today. Love them, hate them. It's a balanced relationship. However, they're taking care of every order. I'm not having to go to the post office. I'm not having to stuff an envelope. They're not having to hold inventory because they print on demand. They take care of the shipping. They've got that online marketplace. They're not charging any transaction fee, but I don't know what zip code it sold to. I don't know if it was a guy, it was a gal. All I know is it a paperback or is it a hardback book? Facts and figures. Welts. Here's the way the numbers came in. I've sold 351 copies on Amazon. I'm really tickled with that. Typically 1 in 7 people buy a hardback book. So I started making hardback available, and I've sold 49 copies. That's about the right ratio. I've sold 510 copies myself off of Richards and the Company Press, CVB, that kind of thing. I'm about to get the hook. I've sold 11 audiobooks. This is horribly exciting because audiobooks are where the money is. You won't believe this. I made $65.74 off of audiobooks alone. I'm really tickled with that. Never heard of Johnny Fry. Not much marketing. I just made it available on Amazon because 16 copies. I've sold 30, and that's conservative. And I've done a lot of donations to that. You have to leave if you want to come back. Been out about 5-6 weeks now. Sold 32 copies on Amazon. My marketing on that has been nothing more than social media. I've done no press releases. I've done no interviews about it. I've sold probably about 80 myself that I know of. I haven't checked with Ashley to see how many she's sold. Audiobooks coming soon on that one. Then I've got one. I'm a little bit embarrassed by this one. This is a 100% AI generated story inspired by my daughter and my niece. Just sitting around one evening, and that's how we put that book together. I've sold a whole whopping 3 copies of that. I've done zero marketing because even though my name's on it, I'm like, it's AI written. What we're doing now, this is my next project. Got my first story done the other night. The name of the book is What Remains in the Frame. Quick little teaser. I go to antique shops often. I pick up photos that have been discarded by family members. That means that there's no family connection. I make up a story based on the photo. I finished my first one Sunday night, and I about cried, even as the guy that wrote it. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a collection of fictitious short stories, stretching me in a direction I've never gone before. And then after that is a book that Miles and I have worked on back in early 24 that I've been working on since 2013. I had a massive heart attack, a series of massive heart attacks. I had some very unique experiences. I flatlined 3 times in 5 days. The last time was 20 minutes of CPR. I experienced some things, and I needed to write that story. Before I left the hospital, I said I was going to write that story. And with the addition of Heartland's new Heartwing, I've got renewed motivation to do that, and some ideas. Problems and challenges, I don't have enough time. I work 8 to 5, so my work is done in the evenings and sometimes late at night. I don't know if you can help me with that. What can you do, though? You can buy the book. Better yet, buy all the books. And if you already got a copy, remember, they make great gifts. This is my infomercial part. Tell somebody about the book if you haven't picked it up, or just, hi, Facebook Live. Tell your friends there as well. Share on social media. If you haven't done so, you can follow me, Tom Brand. Just by my name. I've also got a Tom Brand author page, but I really like when people follow Tom Brand because that's where my stronger audience is. Support your local bookseller. Go down to the Story Collective. I can't say that enough. Yes, there's click convenience, but there's go in there and feel like home. Create an introduction for me if you would. Invite me to speak. I love Rotary. I love Lions. I love Kiwanis. I love Farm City Breakfast, that kind of thing. And then keep following the story. And then help the stories travel. Reviews make all the difference in the world. Even if it's not on Amazon, that makes a huge difference. I can put that on my website. And then when people share it, that makes a world of difference too. Thank you. I appreciate the time. Open to questions.
Any questions?
Jody.
Tell us what you do for your day job.
So I'm the director of the St. Joe Community Alliance. I'm based in the Chamber of Commerce. And so I work, the simplest way to explain it is I do public relations, community relations, government relations. Is that fair? If I was going to describe it in a 15-second elevator speech, I think that's how I'd describe it.
What are those like companies, organizations?
So 9 different organizations here in St. Joe. It's the city, it's the county, it's the St. Joe School District, the Missouri Western State University, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Chamber of Commerce, United Way, 139th Airlift Wing, and Mosaic Life Care. So really, we've got a lot of facets covered there. Tom?
Do you have a newsletter?
I do have a newsletter through the Community Alliance. Thanks for teeing that up. It's called Alliance Insights. It comes out every Monday morning. It's got a calendar of events of things that are taking place in the community. If you're not a subscriber to that, I've got business cards over here. Grab me and I'll get you added to the list. More than likely, the person that's sitting next to you, a couple of chairs down, is getting a copy. So ask them as well. Thank you, Tom. Yes.
I'm a fellow author, and I just want to encourage you to try out the St. Joe Writers Guild.
I looked into the Writers Guild initially, and then it became a matter of time. But thank you. I will circle back around to that because every time I'm around other writers, it's been encouraging. And I think I've learned some things. I did all the layout myself. I've done all the marketing myself. You know, and I hear stories about, well, I paid somebody $1,500 to lay out my book. I paid $2,000, you know, and I hear these people say that they paid a lot of dollars and all they get is a PDF file and they still got to go to the printer. And I think, man, I could work with you. And in fact, I've got 2 different authors that have approached me about, can you help me lay out a book? Would you put it on your website? Would you help me market it? So not only do I feel like I could receive a lot, but I think I could give a lot too. Okay. I'll look that back up online and get that on my calendar. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So I'm not an author, but I do read a lot. I'm always curious because your books, they have really interesting kind of illustrations for the cover. How much of a say do you already have in your mind? Like, this is how I want the cover of the book to look, and then you find someone who can bring that to life, or?
So a combination. Welts was one that my wife, I told her what I wanted. I wanted the Norman Rockwell with the little boy looking at the doctor's certificate with his, you know, kind of that look where he's looking for the doctor's credentials. I wanted that curiosity, and my wife said, put a calf and a little boy facing into each other. So I came up with a background image. I used Photoshop. I did some AI with it. I had a texture that I wanted, and that's how that cover came together. You Have to Leave If You Want to Come Back is actually a filtered look down the driveway at home, up to mom and dad's. The back cover, you can't see it because of all the text that's on there. The back cover is leaving my grandma and grandpa's farm. So both of them mean a lot to me. Maybe that's one of the reasons I've fallen more in love, is just because I've got some subtleties in there that, other than my family, I'm not sure that anybody else would know. Yeah. Marcy?
Tell us what you do on weekends.
On weekends, whenever I finally am able to go back, I am one of the engineers on the Worlds of Fun train. Yeah. I'm not a strong advocate of everyone should work at an amusement park or a carnival, but I tell you what, if you want to feel like a kid again and you want to have a great relationship with customers, because nobody comes to the train when they're mad. Or maybe I should rephrase that. Nobody leaves that train mad. You know, my idea when I'm a conductor, or if I'm the station manager, or when I'm an engineer, all 3 of those have a chance to interact with customers. And if I can tell the joke, I've got inside my jacket pocket, I don't have it here, but I'll say, you want to see something neat? Oh yeah, every little kid wants to see something neat. Let me show you my belly button. And I open up my jacket and I've got a button that says belly on it. You know, and I've got, you know, do you know I've got 11 fingers? And so I count to 11 using my fingers, and I'll even use a kid's fingers. And it's the second best thing to having grandkids, working that job. As firemen, you can't leave the engine cab. So that's my favorite position to run, as far as the engine goes, but you can't leave the engine unattended. Miles?
Maybe you can help with this. So my rooster hasn't been crowing properly.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice?
Yeah. You can calibrate a rooster. That's in the first book, Welts. It requires KFEQ radio, a nice rafter square, a compass, and a clear view of the eastern horizon. And I really recommend sunrise at 6:37, 7:30 to do that. You know, and if you got a rooster that just won't take calibration, there's a solution to that as well. It's rooster noodle soup. Yeah. All right.
One more? Good? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.